So for the past few days, we've been learning about the Transcontinental Railroad and the different perspectives of different groups of people surrounding the construction of the railroad. Does anybody remember the two perspectives we already learned about?
Was it the American settlers and the Chinese immigrants?
Perfect. So we've learned about the American settlers' perspective on the railroad and how the Chinese immigrants impacted the railroad. So today we're going to learn about the Native American perspective on the railroad. And we learned in our last lesson that the land that the Transcontinental Railroad went through was Native American lands. So I want you to think about this scenario just to get your minds rolling today. Imagine you're sitting in your house and your mom just made dinner, your whole family is just sitting on the couch watching TV, and the U.S. government knocks on your house and says you have to be out by tomorrow because they're building a highway and it's going straight through your house. How would this make you feel? Do you think this is fair? They need to build the highway. Do you think that's okay? I want you to turn and talk to your neighbor, and then I'll have some of you share. And time will pass. Does anyone want to share?
I definitely don't think that would be fair because it's my house and I don't think they should be able to tell me that I have to move out, especially in just a day's notice.
That's a good perspective. So when we go back to thinking about in the 1800s when the Native Americans were here, that's exactly what the U.S. government did. They came and they said, we have to build this railroad right here and you have to move. You have to get out. So we're going to be learning a little bit about that today. But to review a little bit, I want to just make sure we know everything about the Transcontinental Railroad that we've learned so far. So what was the Transcontinental Railroad?
Wasn't it a railroad that connected the Atlantic Ocean and the Pacific Ocean?
Yes, perfect. And it transported goods and people, and it was just the first railroad that went all the way across the country. Who was behind the railroad? Who wanted the railroad to be built?
Was it the U.S. government and then the American settlers?
Yeah, the U.S. government and the American settlers who were from European descent at the time. And alongside American settlers, what other group of people helped construct the railroad?
The Chinese immigrants?
Yeah, perfect. So it sounds like you guys have been paying attention for the past few days. So we're going to learn about our new information now. So like I said before, many Native American tribes lived on the land that the railroad was going to be going through. While I go over this PowerPoint, I want you guys to take notes of the highlighted parts, and you're going to record that in your social studies notebook, okay? But we're going to have a quick little conversation to learn about this. And remember, take notes on the highlighted parts on the slide. So Native Americans relied on the buffalo for their livelihood. You're going to be taking notes over the parts that are highlighted. I want you to record that into your notebook. But we're going to explain the Native American livelihood and how the railroad affected them. So the Native American relied on the buffalo for their whole entire livelihood. They used their hides to build their teepees. They used their hides for clothing. They even would take their stomachs and make bags. Their bones they would use to make tools. And here's some pictures of those things that they made. Many of the Native Americans even worshiped the buffalo. They felt spiritually connected to them. So when the railroad began to be constructed on Native American land, despite their efforts to resist it, the U.S. Army led deadly massacres on Native Americans. The Native Americans fought back, but the U.S. government enacted the Homestead Act in 1862, and this gave any white settler 160 acres of land as long as they used it to produce. Now, this land that the U.S. government is just giving to these white settlers, Native Americans resided on before this, right? So, they needed the Native Americans off this land so that they could give it to the white settlers. So, what they did is they urged these white settlers to hunt the buffalo herds. And they ended up hunting them almost to extinction. The U.S. government knew that Native Americans could not continue their livelihood in the West without the buffalo. So eventually the Native Americans had no buffalo to hunt, no buffalo to get supplies from, no buffalo to follow. And the U.S. government eventually forced Native Americans off their land onto reservations. And this is known as the Trail of Tears, which we will learn about in our next lesson. So let's see if you were paying attention. What was the center of livelihood for many Native Americans?
The buffalo herds?
Yes, the buffalo herds. And what all did they use them for?
They used their hides for clothing and for their teepees.
Yeah.
And then you said that they used the stomachs for bags, right?
Yeah, they used literally every part of the buffalo. And many of them even worshiped them and used them in their spirituality. How do you think the Homestead Act affected Native Americans?
Well, like the example you gave earlier, they were forced away from their homes because if that was their land and they just gave it to the settlers,
yeah,
they had to leave.
Exactly. And what did the U.S. government do to destroy Native American livelihood so that they could take over this land?
They hunted the buffalo almost to extinction.
Yep. Perfect. So we were paying good attention, and I hope you took notes of the highlighted parts. So today we're going to be analyzing a few pictures and writing from the perspective of as if we were looking at these pictures or the people in these pictures. So this picture down here is a Native American looking down at the completed railroad as it is entering his homeland. And this is in what would be modern-day Sacramento, California. But this picture was taken in 1867. And this is the picture. So if we're looking here at this picture, we can see him looking down at the railroad. And just to give you guys some perspective on how the railroad impacted America long term, this is modern day Sacramento. So you can see that if this Native American was alive today, a lot has changed in his homeland, right? So I'm going to be writing from the perspective of this Native American to give you guys an example. And then you're going to write from your own perspective on a different picture, okay? My diary entry and kind of explain my thoughts. And then you guys are going to be writing your own diary entry based off the other pictures or just off the Native American perspective in general. So, dear diary, it is the year 1967. The railroad has finally reached my homeland. I have dreaded this day. I first heard of the construction of the railroad 4 years ago. Now it is standing before me. They name my homeland California as if it is theirs to name, as if it hasn't existed here for centuries before they arrived here. So I included that part because the United States government just came and started naming these states their names, right? Before the U.S. government was here, they were Indian territories. They were different Native American territories. California wasn't California, New Mexico wasn't New Mexico, right? So that's why I included that part in my diary entry. I'm so saddened that my beautiful rivers have been polluted and our forests have been cut down. I included this part because to construct the railroad, they had to cut down so many forests and trees, and they polluted our waters with the chemicals from the train. Let's keep going. Nothing good has came from this railroad. I'm scared for my people. What is this railroad going to bring? The people on these trains are selfish. Many seem dangerous. They think they can stop off anywhere and build their houses. I'm terrified that our way of life is threatened. How will we live in harmony with people that do not respect our culture, our land, or our beliefs? So I just included that part because imagine this road coming by your house. You've never seen it before with people that you're not used to. You would be scared, right? You would have fears. You don't know what's going to happen next. They're not respecting your land. They're not respecting your way of life. They're not respecting anything. You would be very fearful. Do you have anything else we should add to this diary entry? So now I'm going to show you another picture just to kind of help develop your perspective because you guys are going to be writing your own diary entry from the perspective of a Native American. So let's look at this picture down here. This is a man standing up at the top, and this right here is a mass of buffalo skulls, okay? This pile is huge. So, like I said earlier, they hunted the buffalo near extinction so that the Native Americans could not thrive in the West. And they urged American settlers just to kill them. And shows how many they really killed. And how they were kind of proud of it, right? Because they took this picture. So, how would the extinction of the buffalo affect Native Americans?
They wouldn't have any materials for things they need in their day-to-day life, and they would starve because they didn't have anything to eat.
Good, good. Why do you think the U.S. wanted to kill all the buffalo?
Maybe the buffalo were in their way, and also because if they killed all the buffalo, it would hurt the Native Americans.
Yeah, the Native Americans would not be able to live in the West as they did before if the buffalo were still thriving. Do you think that if the U.S. took this picture, that they respected the buffalo or the Native Americans?
Probably not, because like you said, they almost looked proud that they killed them all, and the Native Americans worshipped the buffalo.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think they would be happy with the picture of all the dead buffalo if it's something they worship.
Good point. Very good point. So you could add something about that in your diary entry. How our people really worship these buffalo and prayed around them, and now the American settlers are just acting like they're nothing and piling them up. What does this picture make you feel?
It makes me sad for all the buffalo that have died.
Yeah. Does it also make you a little sad for the Native Americans?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I want you guys to include all of these feelings in your diary entry. So I want you to discuss some ideas in your table groups, and then start on that draft of your diary entry. Okay? Does anybody have any questions?
No, ma'am.